called Smart Meter Validation Study, presented by John Pettit with Encore. This presentation was one of the highest scoring presentations from last year. Just as a side note, if you have not registered for CS Week Conference 36, registration rates will go up to $9.95 on March 16th. Please note that the chat window on the right of your screen is disabled, although the Q&A panel is open, located at the bottom right. You may upload questions during the presentation. However, the Q&A segment will occur at the end of the program. Should you encounter difficulty with audio or video, please contact WebEx at 1-866-229-3239. A little background information on John Pettit. John has been with Encore Electric Delivery for almost 26 years. He has been a nuclear power plant engineer, an energy consultant, project manager, business planner, and asset manager. He served as a community relations manager in the retail electric market before moving back to Encore as the Advanced Metering Systems Program Manager. He is a registered professional engineer in Texas with a Bachelor's of Science in Electrical Engineering from Texas A&M and with an MBA from Tarleton State University. Now I will turn over the presentation to John.
Thank you, John. How's everybody doing today? For those of you not in Texas, howdy from Texas. So what we're going to talk about today, this was a study done a couple years ago due to some opportunities we had in Texas as related to smart meter deployment. So first, a little review of Encore. I've got a typo there. It's actually 54,000 square miles. Encore is the 6th largest T&D utility in the U.S. We cover roughly a third of Texas. If you look at the map to the right, you can see that. We are purely transmission and distribution, 3.1 to 3.2 million meters and 7.5 million people that are covered by this. We have no generation and no retail service. Essentially, our customers are the retail electric providers, of which there are plus or minus surrounding 100. And if you look down at the bottom, you can see that where Encore is with relation to the generation and the retail. We're essentially the providers. We are the FedEx or the UPS of the electrical world in deregulated Texas. So smart metering in Texas. Now in Texas we happen to say AMS or Advanced Metering System. We just have to be different. I may say AMS, I may say AMI, but they're essentially the same. But what's been done in Texas, if you look at the picture, this is a general observation of how the data flows, meter reading to the RF mesh into the head end, which is obviously new systems, RF mesh. And if you look in the box 3, all the systems there are new with the exception of our CIS, which is a 30-year-old legacy mainframe-based system, which is in process of being replaced now. But so we have an MDMS, an operational data stores at Maximo. Those are all brand new installations. In Texas, we also have a common web portal, and that's represented in box 4. There's a Smart Meter Texas portal and data repository, and that has the 4 T&D companies in Texas basically use that, and that's a joint ownership property of them. And that from that portal or from that area, the information gets to customers where they have access, to retailers, and also goes to ERCOT for market settlement. So everybody has heard of the smart meter, quote, problem. So we're replacing essentially our whole fleet of meters. In Texas, in 2010, we had a 2-week extended cold snap. It says 5th coldest winter record. It was actually like the lowest winter in the last 20 years. And so we had a record, there was only one case that I'm aware of that's 17 inches, but we had about a foot of snow throughout the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And for us, that white stuff is not something we normally see. We have a pretty good meter reading rate, less than % errors. And we had, because of the way we work around bill cycles, some of the billing periods go longer than normal. And so what we had is we had customers saying, hey, the meters are inaccurate. There's a newspaper heading right there. Skyrocketing electric bills are crushing innocent Texas consumers as a result of Encore's installation of smart meters. Now we had essentially thousands of customer complaints, We had blogs, we had newspaper articles, we had quite a few things against us at this time, and a lot of confusion. So some things we did. We had 7 steps. 2 were as a result of an independent meter testing and back office system and process review. That's items 1 and 3. We offered our customers independent testing, which we do normally on a periodic basis. We gave away in-home energy monitors or in-home monitors that attach to their provided customer hand for some customers. We reviewed existing meter reading records for error readings, outtake error readings. We eventually, one of the things that we added as a result of this is that we ensured that we took pictures of every meter as it was removed. We did a side-by-side comparison, and we also had a customer education, a customer experience visits that we added as a result of this. So we did a meter side-by-side test, and this is a result of what we did. This was separate from the independent review, and we still continue to do side-by-side meter tests in deployment areas as we roll out our meters. We're currently at about 2.5 million of the 3.1, 3.2 million. So interesting note here is that they did 12 homes in the Temple, Texas area. After a month of data, there was only a 32 kilowatt hour difference. That's accumulated. If you look on there, there was essentially 1 meter that stood out on the very top. That was 12 kilowatt hours. The rest were minimal. So the net difference was way under 1%. So the error was minimal. So our customer experience, our mobile experience center, we have a 1,000 square foot tractor trailer that's essentially a triple wide that we were using with our customer education program. And so we added this to the areas that were most hard hit with complaints. In addition to this, we rented an RV that followed behind customers, and we actually reviewed about 900 customer bills. The customers could come in, bring their bill, and talk to our experts. Now, our experts in the customer service area, one thing we have done since then, or an offshoot of this, is we actually have a program called Ask Encore, where any of our customers can ask essentially any question about the electricity or the electric market. And that's kind of I won't say a fallout, but as a result of this, we have these people that are way qualified to answer these type of questions that are above a typical call center rep. So we had an independent review that was done, and this was commissioned by the Texas Public Utility Commission, and it was done by Navigant Consulting, and it covered the 3 T&D companies at the time that were deploying meters. Now this report is about 171 pages of pure excitement, and if you go to the Navigant site and look up smart meter, you can find that report. Like I said, 171 pages. There's a good executive summary. It also has a good summary of advanced meter requirements in the status in Texas, which is obviously a little dated at the time. As of right now, there's about 6 million meters deployed. At the time of this, it was basically 1.5 million. And so it focused on the Texas AMS deployments for our T&D companies, and it did independent testing on meters in Texas, and I've got more results later. It also looked at historical tests, looked at electromechanical and advanced meters as deployed. A lot of paper was reviewed. It says there are 18,000 pages. We also provided electronic records for essentially most all the advanced meters deployed at the time, and we provided historical usage for most of our residential customers for all this comparison and correlation. A lot of data, and everybody knows that AMS and AMI is big data here. So 40 gigabytes of electronic files that were gone through. They ran some comparison there. And they also interviewed people with Encore and the other T&D companies, including Centerpoint and AEP Texas. And so they looked at all the processes behind what was going on with meter deployment, because the goal here was to make sure that the whole process of deployment was up to snuff. So the 4 questions that were asked in this smart meter verification plan, and this is the Navigant plan. So the first question was, are they accurate? And I've got essentially results of each of those from the study. Is the recorded usage accurately communicated? Does the process work? Does the data flow, that data flow I showed earlier, does it work all the way through to billing? Do advanced meters on average read higher than electromechanical? And are there any other factors, or what's contributing factors and symptoms that lead to the customer complaints? So the scope of the work, and this is the scope that was given to Navigant, as sponsored by the Texas PUC, was to review the accuracy, investigate the PUCT complaints, compare historical usage, look at all the processes, and one thing for you out there that are in the midst of or haven't or in process of deploying, you'll find that AMI or AMS will essentially change every business process in your company some way or another. That's with two-way metering. And let's look at the meter to bill process. Let's find out if the infrastructure is accurate and we have controls in place. So the first question, are they accurate? You can see there we tested 5,600 plus smart meters, and we tested 85,000 plus electromechanical meters. And you see overall that the advanced meters were was over 1% higher than that. So the accuracy is there. Most P&D companies use 0.5% for accuracy versus the ANSI 2%. And you'll see that essentially all of them met. We had a couple meters that failed, and you're going to have equipment failure just in general. I'll let you take a look at those numbers. So generally, advanced meters are more accurate than electromechanical meters. General electromechanical meters, they tend to fail, or they tend to run slower over time if they do start failing, whereas a digital meter, which includes advanced meters, tends to just fail and stop working. And of course, with AMI, we know when that occurs, and we actually can get replacement done much sooner than waiting for that meter reader to come around once a month. Does the data flow through? Is the usage flow through? The end results were that the processes we put in place and our control points or audit points were sufficient to ensure that the data flowed through. And you can see the other information they looked at, and this is all spelled out in the actual document. Validated head-to-head communication, on-demand meter reads, and Encore actually does this. We do thousands of those a day, on-demand reads, and thousands of remote disconnects and reconnects. That's just part of our normal day-to-day business now. We've actually done anywhere between 2.5 to 3 million of those since we put the system in service. So is the usage higher for advanced meters than old electromechanical? No, they're not. One of the interesting notes are if you took all the customer complaints we got at the time and you broke them up by at the time we had about 1 million smart meters deployed, you broke them up by the smart meters versus electromechanical, the percentage of complaints were essentially equal to the deployment numbers. So if there was a third roughly smart meters, a third of the complaints were smart meter related customers. And so we got an elevated number of customer complaints only because smart meters and because of the newspaper and the media that everybody heard about. Any other contributing factors? What other contributing factors are there? Cold weather. 2 weeks of extended cold weather in Texas, where you've got a lot of people with heat pumps. Heat pumps, after so much time when the ground catches up, the temperature cools off, you get strip heaters, electrical strip heaters. We had typical strip heaters will cost you $2 a day in some cases. In Texas, we had some customers that were running heaters that were costing them $25 a day. So their exorbitant electric bills were a lot of result of electric strip heating that came into service. Many of the complaints were from apartment complexes that tend to use strip heaters as replacement heat. We had some bill periods that were longer than normal. We actually watch when we deploy meters, we deploy around a bill cycle, but because of the way that occurs is sometimes you get a longer billing period. And another contributing factor they noted was that the typical meter reading error rate in Texas was less than 1%, and so people saw that minimal errors with their billing, and so when they saw a great change, they anticipated it was a smart meter issue. So little lessons learned, and I'm way ahead of schedule. This was a lot faster than I expected, so we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. One of the keys here is customers. Make sure your customers know what's going on. And I can say that we were a lot more proactive with our customer education program post this incident or these incidents. We were much better about it, getting the word out. As I noted, we have our Ask Encore program that provides a higher level of customer service in responding to customers, very personal, hands-on. Making sure that retail electric providers are aware of it. We do have a program that when we deploy meters, we go out and put door hangers out to notify customers, but a lot of times customers don't pay attention to that. And we don't own the customer, so we don't have a way to do bill inserts, and besides, who reads those anyway? So the word is to get the word out. Make sure the commissioner and staff of your states are aware of what's going on. And we like to have, we try to have periodic meetings with our staff, discuss periodic updates, monthly reports, keep the communication doors open. Make sure your process controls are in place. And we do this with our AMS system. We've got numerous audit controls in place so we can validate the data flow, look at your data governance and data management process to make sure that the data does flow from one part to another. We've got organizational understanding and change impact. As I mentioned, essentially all your business process will be impacted by an AMI deployment. You will be affected, whether you want it to or not. AMI is not a technology upgrade like AMR. Whereas AMR is a one-way meter read, AMR is essentially replacing meter readers. AMI is two-way, and so you've got two-way communication. It allows you to automate processes. It allows you to do things at the meter, home area networks, et cetera, but it's a change to your business. It changes the way the business operates. Third-party oversight with the Navigant, I think it provides additional credibility. We were doing some things as Encore and Centerpoint, likewise in the South, were doing things to prove that smart meters were fine. You're still always going to have your trolls or your people that don't believe anything written, but a third party, an independent party, brings additional credibility and actually proves this. And I believe there was also a similar study done in California about the same time as the Texas study. So perception is reality. Changes, communication has to be frequent. And that's additionally, like I said, it's very hard in Texas when you don't own the customer. Customers belong to the retailers. However, all the communication is mostly coming out of the T&D business and not necessarily from the retailer. And with that, we've got plenty of time for Q&A.
All right. Well, John, I tell you what, earlier you spoke or made mention of some complaints. Can you give us some other types of complaints that you've received about smart meters?
Well, I guess the big thing these days now is people want to opt out, and usually the most likely reason is because they have some health issues. And we address those, Encore addresses those on a case-by-case basis, and we actually send out our RF techs to go visit with the customer, call the customer up, and address those on an individual basis. There are lots of things you can do at a meter or for the customer that can address those health issues. You know, it's highly likely there are people that are very susceptible, but sometimes the people that complain about the health impacts are those that are using a cell phone to call you. So RF health issues. There's also the people that that say that you're listening on them. You know, Big Brother. You're trying to find out everything they're doing. You know, we don't do that in Texas. The customer owns the data, and so even with our Smart Meter Texas portal, the common portal, retailers have access and the customer has access, but the customer has to authorize any third party to give access, and that'll be on a case-by-case basis by customer to access that data. And as a T&D company, we don't have it. The only thing we want to use the data for is to ensure that we're making our system improvements in the right place. We also feed AMI data into our outage management system now. We just recently put that in service and are seeing pretty good results in our testing.
All right. Tell us how else you've needed to engage the customer when deploying advanced meters.
Other ways you can engage the customer. As I mentioned, we have our mobile experience center. Now what we tried to do is we tried to send that to other locations. We try to put it in areas prior to deployment. We also try to finish up deployment with that mobile experience center. Local things we did in the past, we use billboards, we use local internet papers. You know, as I mentioned, it's hard when you don't own the customer, so you don't have direct facing to the customer. So we have to use kind of independent ways to notify the customer. So the door hangers are a big thing. We hang a door hanger if we can't get to a customer and say, hey, call us up and we'll come and replace your meter at your schedule. I think that's the majority of it, unless someone has a specific question.
All right. Are there any plans, this just came in, are there any plans to do additional verification studies similar to this report?
At this time, we do not plan on it. You know, if the commission orders something, obviously, we still offer customers tests based on a given schedule. Customers can request tests. We also do our own independent testing that we do, or not necessarily independent, but our in-house testing we do. If we suspect something, one advantage of AMI is if you see something acting different or funny, you pretty much know that what's going on, and you can send a tech out, or you can do it remotely, or if you need to, you can do a meter exchange a lot sooner than in the past. You don't have to wait for that monthly meter reader to go around to visit.
All right. Another question that has popped up on our screen is, what types of failure rates is Encore seeing now as you finish your meter deployment?
Well, as we look at our current failure rates, if you looked in there, there was a very low rate of failure. There was essentially the 2 out of 5,600. We're running less than 1%, much less than 1%. I think we run between 0.08 and 0.1%, and that's for the total population of 2.5 million meters deployed. So it's still it's a lower rate than we had in the past with electromechanical relays, correction meters.
All right. Well, we're out of questions. Let's see. Wait here.
There's a couple out there, I think.
I've gotten one that just came in right now. I'm reading it. Were you able to successfully communicate to the customers the real issues?
I think we were. You know, this independent study discusses it. You know, when someone comes in and tells you their bill's out of control, one thing we found is that people were not aware that in Texas they can change their electric provider. And so many of the people that had high bill complaints were still paying 17, 18 cents per kilowatt hour, which was way above the Texas norm of 10 to 12 cents at the time. And so one thing is they just weren't aware of what was going on with deregulation. And deregulation has been in effect for essentially over 10 years when this thing occurred. And so just getting the word to customer and trying to explain to them that they do have options in Texas. And that was, when you actually show the customer and you compare their bills and you say, look, here, all we're doing is we're measuring your kilowatt hours. We measure what comes out of your house. There's no inflation here, and you show them what they used the previous year, and you adjust for temperature, then most of the people do understand. You know, there's always an exception, but generally, you know, 95, 98% of the people understand that, okay, I can see this. I was running electric resistive heat, or I was running my heater a lot more than normal because the previous winter was a mild winter. But you have to sit down. I mean, like I said, we visited 900 customers face to face with those customers to explain these things with them.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, we're coming up at 1:30, and so that looks like it'd be a good stopping point since I don't have any other questions that have popped up. If you haven't received an answer on your question, we'll get with you offline and get you an answer. But I'm not seeing anything pop up as of yet. Just want to let you know that if you have not registered for CS Week Conference 36, registration rates will go up on March 16th. So make a note of that. It will go to $9.95. And so this webinar will be hosted on our CS Week website for your review at a later date. So we thank John Pettit for his time and his insights on presenting this webinar, and we thank you attendees for joining us. That will be our end for today, and we look forward to seeing you at CS Week Conference at the Gaylord Texan, April 30th through May 4th of 2012. And we'll have a webinar again next month, same time. It's the second week, and then we'll do it on a Tuesday. So we thank you, everybody, for joining us.